For an undercover cop, every day is a risk. Every day they meet the possibility of being found out and even killed for their perceived betrayal. Undercover police, however, can also play an extremely important role in bringing down some of the most secretive and intelligent criminals and crime organizations. But what happens when the line between right and wrong becomes blurred? What happens to the officers who take their role too far? In today's episode, we will be shedding light on just a few such instances as we explore the cases of 3 undercover police officers who turned bad. Taking care of your health is often a priority at the start of a new year, but what about your mental health? Therapy can seem daunting at times, but it also gives you the tools that you need to deal with challenges in your daily life. Untreated mental health problems can get in the way of achieving your goals, and we'd like to help you start the year right, alongside BetterHelp, who this video is in paid partnership with. BetterHelp is available to anyone looking to start therapy, no matter where you are. Finding the right therapist can be tricky, and they may not even be available in your area. With BetterHelp, you're connected with a credentialized therapist who will give you helpful, unbiased advice. In most cases, you can get started with your therapist within 48 hours of completing the initial questionnaire about what your needs are. There's flexibility in your therapy too. You can schedule whenever you want, change to a new therapist if the first one doesn't feel like the right fit, and hold your sessions however you want, video call, phone call, or even text if that's what you prefer. People often make resolutions to hit the gym this time of year, so why not hone your mind muscles too? Join over 4 million people who've used BetterHelp to start living a healthier, happier life by using the link in the description, or by going to betterhelp.com/coldcasedetective. You'll be supporting the channel, and you'll get 10% off your first month so you can try it out and see if therapy helps you too. And now let's dive in with today's mysteries. Vancito Gumbs. In November of 2020, the Department of Justice announced that a former Georgia police officer named Vancito Gumbs was convicted on gang-related charges. Those who knew Gumbs were shocked. 28-year-old Gumbs was working as a DeKalb County police officer when it emerged he had claimed to be a hitman for the Gangster Disciples, a U.S. gang with roots in Chicago, Illinois. Investigators alleged that he had relayed sensitive law information to gang members and even provided weapons to them. The Gangster Disciples criminal group dates back to the 1970s and is described by law enforcement as being highly structured. It reportedly follows a leadership hierarchy called the positions of authority. Furthermore, the gang follows a set of rules, with the most important being silence and secrecy. It disallows its members from cooperating with law enforcement, and its rules are taken so seriously that anyone who disobeys can be punished by death. Between 2011 and 2014, the group was responsible for 24 shootings and 12 murders. Gumbs was barely out of high school when he signed up to join the military, planning to help support his pregnant girlfriend by serving in the Middle East. He was just 20 when he was sent overseas, where he brought supplies to troops on the front lines. According to his mother, Janelle, Gumbs engaged in firefights and did things he didn't want to do, adding that these things would haunt him when he came home. In 2013, back home in the US, he joined the DeKalb County Police Department, though he was known to be struggling greatly with his mental health. His mother claimed that before his arrest, he wasn't eating or sleeping and had turned to drink to help him manage his mental anguish. Though his loved ones encouraged him to reach out for help, by the time he scheduled an appointment with the Department of Veterans Affairs, it was too late. He was arrested the day before his meeting. While investigating Gumbs, prosecutors concluded that the 28-year-old had joined or remained as part of the gang, while knowing and agreeing that the gang engaged in murder. Furthermore, in 2015, he sent a text message that read, "I am a GD hitman." During this time, Gumbs was being monitored by the FBI, which had suspicions that he was involved with the gangster disciples, and while investigators believed that GD stood for the gang name, as it was commonly abbreviated, Gumbs argued that GD meant goddamn, and told his attorney this. He also added that he was referring to his time in the military. His lawyer concluded that he was likely trying to impress the woman who he'd sent the message to. In 2019, Gumbs was accused of assaulting a man while on duty back in 2015. He reportedly mistook the man for a rival gang member, the victim claimed. The victim's attorney stated, "At the time he assaulted my client, he was telling my client he was a gangster disciple. All I know is he assaulted my client, broke his jaw, and caused about $77,000 in medical bills, all while he's handcuffed." The FBI also noted that they recorded phone conversations Gumbs had with the Georgia Gangster Disciples chief enforcer, a man named Kevin Clayton, whom he had befriended shortly after joining the force. The DOJ added, on later calls, the chief enforcer noted that he had Gangster Disciples police officers at his disposal. Some of the information Gumbs passed to Clayton included information about a type of crime police were investigating at one point, and advice that he should avoid a specific bar that the police officers intended on raiding. Gumbs was also accused of having cocaine in his police patrol car, and he resigned from his position following this complaint. Gumbs was sentenced to 15 years in prison for racketeering conspiracy involving murder. He will subsequently face 5 years of supervised release. U.S. Attorney Byung Pak said of this case, "His brazen disregard for his sworn duty as a police officer, betrayal of the police's trust, and disregard for human life warrants the significant sentence he received in this case." Jack Hudson. In the city of Yuma, Arizona, on July 4th, 1995, dispatchers were surprised to receive a call from Yuma Police Lieutenant Dan Elkins. In a frenzied voice, the police officer could be heard saying, "Hurry up, hurry, he's shooting guns, he's firing rounds, hurry up." But just moments later, Dan Elkins would be shot dead. The man he'd been referring to on the phone was the Yuma County Sheriff's deputy, Jack Hudson. At the time, Jack Hudson, Dan Elkins, and Mike Crow, a Department of Public Safety sergeant, were all parts of a narcotics task force and had been working undercover. The force consisted of 22 members from local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies and was designed to investigate drug activity in the Yuma area. Reportedly, on the days leading up to the July 4th shooting, the officers had noticed that key evidence was missing from their office, so they decided to install a video camera to attempt to capture whoever was carrying out the thefts. Then, on July 4th, Dan Elkins, Mike Crow, and evidence custodian Jim Earhart headed to the task force office to find they'd captured one of their own, Hudson, on the installed CCTV. Furthermore, they found that the safes had been broken into, and offices had been ransacked. The trio, as they went to leave the building, then ran into Jack Hudson, who, without warning, began firing a 9mm weapon. The other 3 officers were not armed, and though they tried to get help, it didn't arrive on time. Mike and Dan died at the scene. Earhart managed to escape when Hudson's gun jammed. In reports, Hudson is described as being mentally unwell, with Dan Elkins claiming on his call to emergency services that his colleague had gone 918, a Yuma PD radio code meaning mentally unstable, but it's unclear what his exact motive was. 37-year-old Hudson was arrested outside of the building and held in lieu of $15.5 million bail. He had attempted to flee the scene, but was arrested swiftly. 3 guns and a set of evidence room keys were discovered in Hudson's vehicle, while a further 40 guns were found in his home, 25 of which had been lifted from the task force evidence room. Other items seized from the deputy included drug paraphernalia, $2,700 in cash, illegal substances, radios, binoculars, multiple phones, cassette tapes, and a US Customs badge. Hudson was convicted of murder in 1997 and sentenced to life behind bars. Reportedly, for years after the shooting, he claimed he couldn't remember anything he had done as he was high on drugs at the time. Hudson died of natural causes in October 2017, aged 59, while still in prison. Tom Coleman. In 1999, Tom Coleman was awarded the Texas Department of Public Safety's Outstanding Lawman of the Year. Between January 1998 and July 1999, in a small Texan town named Tulia, Coleman had been operating undercover as part of a drugs task force, and during his time, he arrested 46 people who would later be convicted on felony drug charges. Notably, 39 of these victims were black. All of them pled guilty and received sentences of up to 90 years. The first to go to trial was a man named Joe Moore. Joe was touted as Tulia's kingpin, but lived in a shack and drove an ancient sedan that was barely held together. Joe, who'd insisted that he'd never sold cocaine to Coleman, maintained his innocence throughout the trial. Coleman would later become well known for his distinct lack of evidence. He never wore a wire and never recorded his exchanges with the supposed drug dealers. He didn't even have a notebook in which to record interactions. Instead, he scribbled names and dates on his leg. More interestingly still, those who'd been arrested by Coleman had no drugs, drug paraphernalia, weapons, or unusual amounts of money in their homes when searched. In all cases, the state had no physical or corroborating evidence. It was essentially Coleman's word against the defendants. Joe Moore was accused of delivering cocaine to Coleman within 1,000 feet of a school, no less. While he'd been convicted of 2 felonies in his youth, his criminal record was otherwise minimal. He believed that the justice system would see him right and continued to protest his innocence throughout the ordeal. Unfortunately, a mostly white jury found Joe guilty. He was sentenced to 99 years behind bars. Locals and the media celebrated the conviction. Coleman, they believed, was taking out the garbage and ridding the streets of so-called scumbags. He was seen as a local hero. Month after month, many Tulia residents watched in relief as one alleged criminal after another was put away. Even first-time offenders, like 22-year-old Freddie Brookins, weren't let off lightly. Freddie was charged with 1 count of delivery and given 27 years behind bars, despite, like Joe Moore, there being no evidence, only Coleman's word. But Coleman was far from a perfect witness. He reportedly got dates and times wrong frequently, and eventually he was seen as suspicious when his victims were able to produce solid alibis proving that they were nowhere near Coleman when he said they were. One man was at work. Another woman accused of dealing cocaine was found to be in Oklahoma on the day of her interaction with the undercover cop. The prosecution, however, tried to maintain credibility for themselves and for Coleman by subtly dropping cases that were causing them issues. Some locals began to see through Coleman. They found him dubious, but they needed proof. A rancher named Gary Gardner and Reverend Alan Bean decided that they would be the ones to search for answers. They couldn't fathom how a town of 5,000 people contained 46 drug dealers. Who were they selling to? Before long, outsiders, journalists, and organizations such as the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People began to take note of the inconsistencies in Coleman's investigations. A criminal attorney named Jeff Blackburn also turned his attention to the strange case and soon discovered that Coleman was not the lone Texas Ranger fighting the bad guys that he'd painted himself out to be. It was soon revealed that Coleman was a racist, often dropping slurs in front of colleagues, although he insisted that, despite the large number of black Americans he'd arrested, race had nothing to do with it. It also came to light that Coleman, when he became employed by Swisher County as a deputy, was under indictment for stealing $6,700 from Cochran County merchants, where he'd previously been employed as a sheriff. He was also fired in Ellis County after he was accused of sexual harassment. Lawyer Jeff Blackburn also filed appeals on behalf of convicted Tulia residents, adding to the disintegration of Coleman's reputation. The deputy was finally indicted on perjury charges and was also set to face a trial of his own. 35 of the 38 victims sent to prison were pardoned by the governor in 2003, and $5.9 million was doled out as part of a settlement. Joe Moore was paid over $250,000 for his ordeal. He eventually purchased a pig farm with the help of a retired preacher and a former real estate agent, before dying of a heart attack in 2008. Meanwhile, Tom Coleman was put on trial for perjury. He was found guilty and received 10 years of probation, but no jail time. One article notes that he still stands by his stories, claiming, quote, "They were pissed off at me because all the blacks went to jail, and I was the cause of all this misery. Well, I wouldn't have been the cause of all this misery if they hadn't sold me dope. I'm not an angel, I'll own up to anything I didn't do right, but I'll sure as hell not own up to anything I didn't do." And there you have the facts. Please leave a comment down below with your own thoughts and reactions, and remember to like this video and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you for watching. Stay alert, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.